I wouldn't. That's too dark.
Good evening. Hey, Sean.
Hey, Sean. Give it a couple minutes, let people roll in before we start.
Thailand. I missed the balut. Maine. Wisconsin. Michigan. Patterson, New Jersey. That's the home of Gianni 6 gun treatment. Canada. Hey.
Well, we hope everybody is well and healthy. And sorry, it's been 3 weeks. We've been doing a lot of filming, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed the videos that have been up.
The recent 17M1 has done pretty well. It's I thought that was a very interesting video, and it took a long time to try to chase down all those facts.
Okay, we're getting started. If you guys would like to submit a question, you can do that within the chat, and I will be pulling questions randomly throughout the chat. If you would like a guaranteed response or just want to donate to the SAS cause, you can do so in the chat by clicking the $, and you'll get priority over everyone else's questions. We also encourage you to donate through DonorBox, because they only take about 2% and Google takes 30% of whatever you donate. I'll pop that down into the chat line so you can see it. You can also go to smallarmsolutions.com, and that link is in there as well. And you can put your question in the comment section of your donation, and my phone is here. I get an email and I'll read it from there. But we're happy you guys could join us tonight, and we're going to try to get through as many questions as possible. So I submitted it out earlier to see if anybody wanted to start a question early. We have a couple that are up first. Kirk is first. He is basically saying everything is being sold out as far as like guns and ammo, and he wants to know. He said the feds and the DOJ said that 6.5 million guns were sold just in March, April, and May.
Got a record numbers.
Yeah. And given your insider information in the firearms industry, do you have a prognosis for when the supply pipeline fills up again, possibly July 4th or August 4th? Any guesses? And manufacturers adding shifts, or, do you know anything?
This is not an issue with the manufacturers putting it out. They're putting out just the same numbers as they always have, in some cases more. This is due to the demand, and unfortunately, what goes along with a lot of this demand is price increase and price spikes. That's an unfortunate thing, but the interesting thing is to know is these price spikes that you're seeing are not coming from the manufacturers. They're coming from whatever distributor or dealer, whoever's selling the stuff. So the stuff is still being produced. The guns are being produced. Everything's being produced. It's just that it's the demand. So until that demand drops down and more becomes available, that's really what the problem is. I don't have any way of guessing or knowing when that's going to let up. Things are not getting really any better for as far as Corona, for as far as civil unrest and what's going on with law enforcement. who are basically backing away from their jobs due to the current political situation. So people are certainly more interested in being able to protect themselves. So this is going up for as far as interest, and people are buying guns who never have. So I don't really see anything happening in the near future that's going to make equipment easier to get.
Steve, I don't know if Steve's in here yet, but I did get your donation, Steve. Thank you so much. And I will be looking for your questions tonight. So that is all we have that is for so far that was submitted. So we're going to go right in. Kerry is here. He's in Wyoming. Kerry, why are you in Wyoming?
Wow. Kerry, we just got out yesterday or on Monday and shot the new Air Force GAU-5A, the new survival rifle for the pilots. So hopefully you'll start seeing that one next week. So I'd like you for that one. Interesting, being Air Force civilian and all.
Yeah, Kerry's complaining. He says it's Heather in her elbow. Kerry, that's, you don't know the woman's body very well. That's a shoulder. That's not an elbow. What's your thought on the Barrett Recce 7 piston?
We do have a video, I believe. No, that was DI. It's certainly an excellent design. I've been trying to get one for a while. At the time I got the gun, it was supposed to be a 6-8 external piston gun. That's not what they sent me. So I'm still trying to get them. Right now I have a lot of weapons that I'm waiting on to do reviews on. I got a lot of rifles and pistols that are on order. But right now, it's hard for them to justify getting me guns to review when there's such a demand for sale. But that is one model that I've been trying to get my hands on. If you go to our page, you'll see a review on one of the Barrett rifles.
Sean says LMT only started getting tough about a year ago. It was the best kept secret, not anymore. Do you think that's because of the videos and the attention that you gave it? Because I feel like people didn't really know about it until you started making videos.
I have no idea. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that LMT's gotten some very impressive military contracts. And people are starting to realize that you don't get these contracts if you're not a high quality manufacturer. And there's no question that nobody has done the number of videos that with LMT that I have. None of the big boys, none of the guys who have all the subs. It wasn't until more recently you saw Mr. Guns and Gear who did a review. No, it wasn't Mr. Guns and Gear. That was Grand Thumb, who got the LMT rifles out. That was pretty awesome. He did that. And I don't know why the bigger guys have never done it. Right now it's it's hard to get between their military contracts and then everything that's going as soon as they can make it. But they have been a very well kept secret, and people are starting to finally catch on. And now they can't keep up with the manufacturing of the demand.
Kerry says he's in Wyoming because that's where his children live. I didn't know you had kids, Kerry.
Neither did I. Thought you were an eternal bachelor.
Kerry has offspring. That's kind of frightening. Just kidding.
Must have been those aviator glasses when he was younger.
Hopefully I don't butcher your name. Rollis on Donor Box, thank you so much. He says no questions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Pistol maker microstamp the firing pin or make the barrel easier for forensic experts to match a case to a gun.
Microstamping was something that was introduced I believe in the early 2000s. It was a technology that was tested. In fact, I was a forensic examiner when this was coming out. We had seen some of these firing pins that had come through. Now, the technology was stupid, and it was for a couple of reasons. First off, firing pins can be removed. Second of all, you have the firing pins that are striking this incredibly hot surface of the primer, which has friction, and eventually will wear it off. So it was a flawed technology to begin with on the firing pin microstamping. Second of all, firing pins are one of the biggest, most common things that you would replace. So how would you go about having that microstamp? The technology was never proven. In fact, the only state that said that was going to become law was going to be California, and obviously that didn't work for it. Now, for as far as the barrels are concerned, there are specific barrels that are more difficult for forensic fire examiners to look at. The Glock barrels, any kind of cold hammer forged barrel, Glock HK. If you look at the IWI, for instance, some of those cold hammer forged barrels, you can't even tell the number of lands and grooves on them. it's a manufacturing process where you're not actually cutting into the metal. You know, what forensic examiners are looking at, they're looking at the tool marks from where their tool cuts into that metal. Every time the tool cuts, it leaves a unique pattern. In the case of these hammer forged barrels we're using mandrels, you're not cutting into it, you're forming around it. So in the case of Glock, for instance, there have been police departments who have requested from Glock to make a standard cut barrel so they can be identified. Miami-Dade Police was one of them. They've always had issues with, they had multiple officers involved in a shooting. They want to know, where the bullet came from. They haven't been able to see. So Glock had worked with them on a barrel, which they refer to as the Miami-Dade barrel, which they had some kind of technology that they put into it that supposedly made it easier. Now, if any of you guys have watched the G17 video that I did, you'll see some stuff on forensics in there, which shows the Gen 5 marksman barrel, where you will see that does offer much more for forensic examiners to be able to look at and to be able to identify, which was something that Glock never announced. This was information that I got from people I knew in the FBI during the procurement. They wanted something like this. Glock has been more out telling everybody that this is a reliability or accuracy enhancement, makes the gun more accurate, which it may or may not. But there's no way of questioning when you look at it under a microscope that the new Gen 5 does give a firearm examiner something to look at, something to identify. So unfortunately, if you look at the guns that are the best guns out there for as far as longevity for police officers, they are the guns that are most difficult for forensic examiners to look at and identify the bullets. Now, cartridge cases is a whole different ballgame. Cartridge cases for the most part are fairly straightforward. They're not too difficult. It's those firing pin impressions, which is why you never saw the technology go forward with the microstamping. And then for as far as the barrels are concerned, you start seeing departments and federal agencies who are demanding that they have something in there so they can be identified.
Michael, thank you. Which length do you think is best on an AR-15 pistol?
I would never go below the 10.5. If you're going to have a pistol, I would not go below 10.5 because of the durability and the reliability. Those are military grade. You have the proper gas ports in them, they will work. You start going below that, the guns get less and less reliable. I will tell you, I've never seen overseas or in any military a use of any kind of a PDW less than 10.5 inches. It just doesn't exist. There was a company out of Canada who tried selling some over and not Kazakhstan, but over in Iraq. They tried selling with some of these 8.5-inch barrels, and lo and behold, they didn't work. No matter what these guys try to do to them, they don't work, especially on fully automatic. You can sometimes get them to work on semi, but on full auto, you get that high rate of fire, they just don't work. If you're looking for a range toy, I guess go whatever that you want. But for as far as reliability, something you can depend on, I would not go below 10.5 inches or 10.3 inches.
Resolute. What are the design merits to standard double heat shield compared to aftermarket single heat shield, such as Magpul or BCM handguards, and vice versa?
If you go back to the original Car 15 or XM177 handguards, you had open ends on the top for both of those. And of course, all they do is allow the radiated heat to exit. Well, the military had found that, especially when they would fire more on fully automatic, that obviously that would burn the shooter's hand. They would heat up very early. When the design came out for the M4, the use of the double heat shield was basically you had your open vents on top, and then the heat shield one on the bottom, so it closed it off so that radiation heat couldn't get to your hand. It definitely worked to improve on burst and full auto for as far as your hands not getting hot as quickly. So the double heat shields were taken for that reason, because the heat would have to go around that inner heat shield in order for it to get out rather than dumping it right at your hand. So it certainly was better, but the problem with the double heat shields, it holds the heat into the weapon rather than letting it out to atmosphere, which is what the original ones do. But sometimes what's better for the gun and what's better for the human using it, sometimes what's better for the human is what's taken. So the double heat shields were far better for the human than they were for the gun, and vice versa.
Thank you, Andrew. Thoughts on the Sig Germany closing and the barrel thread on my factory Colt 9mm SBR?
Well, if you look at what's happening with Sig right now, Sig USA is very different from, say, Glock USA. If you look at Glock USA versus Glock Austria, Everything is done in Glock, Austria. There is no R&D. There is nothing done other than distribution and manufacturing in the United States. So any new products development is going to be coming out of Austria. Sig wasn't that way. When Sig USA opened up, they opened up full R&D, and all of your stuff that's being manufactured for U.S. government's being manufactured here in the States. International arms business is getting more and more competitive, especially when you have countries who are restricting the company's abilities to be able to sell. Sig USA is a much more viable entity financially than what you're getting out of Germany. And you're seeing this similar thing happening with I think H&K right now too. A lot of the companies overseas are not doing nearly as well as they are here in the U.S. So it didn't really surprise me to hear that. Very rarely do you ever see any kind of a Sig Germany weapon. When was the last time you saw a pistol where you saw it was made in Germany? Everything you're seeing is mostly made in the USA. Even the original P229s, when that was the catalyst of Sig USA production, was around 1994 or 95 when they started manufacturing the stainless steel slides for the P229. Then eventually all the pistols went to stainless steel slides made in the USA. You still had the frames made in Germany, but all that would eventually change. So with the capabilities that Sig has here, for all the R&D being done here, it was definitely a good move.
Nathaniel, thank you. What parts would I need for a SOP-mod Block 2 clone non-FSP?
What I would I'll have you take a look at my video I did on the Mark 18s. It goes to that in total with all those components and which ones that you would need to buy for all 3 blocks, if I recall.
Cody on DonorBox. Thank you, Cody. Thanks for some of the best firearms content on YouTube.
I appreciate that.
Any thoughts on the VP9? Is it the same HK quality we know and love?
I had done a video on the VP9 when it first came out. I believe it's the same quality as it was, back then. The VP9 is the USP of the next 2 decades. If you go back to the early 90s when the USP came out, you had a weapon that was supposed to come to the American market that was to be affordable to the American gun owner, because outside of that, you had the HKs, the P7 M8s. They were totally out of the price range for any average American shooter that was out there. The USP was supposed to be the same prices as the Berettas and as the SIGs and that 600 mark. And when it came out, it was, and it sold really, really well. But in typical HK fashion, as the years went on, those prices went up, 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 and now you're to the same point where you're looking at $900 to $1,000 for a USP. Well, the VP9 came out the exact same way. We want to introduce a striker-fired gun to the American market that can compete for law enforcement and in North American sales. When the gun came out, I was very pleased with it, the way that it felt. It was striker-fired gun. It was, Glock was the starting point for all that, of course. It was very well made. They had their own twist they put on it. It was an excellent firearm, and it still is. For those of you who want to get HKs, but you don't want to spend the money for the USPs, you do have an HK well-made pistol there. I could offer no critiques on it. It probably has a nicer trigger than the Glock. I do think it was probably better trigger than the Glock had. Recoil-wise, accuracy-wise, it's all there. I mean, you're still looking at a cold hammer forged barrel that you would have on the USP, but you have it in the much less expensive striker-fired pistol. That is something that if you want, there's no way I could discourage you from going after, because it's a very well-made pistol.
Coffee, thank you. Did ATF just ban pistol braces?
Nothing has been banned. This is ATF's at it again. And there's people who are noticing things that they're doing, and they're starting to call attention to it. So what you're seeing is more preliminary. They've done nothing. You're seeing some preemptive strikes to strike down what they're doing as being unconstitutional. The biggest issue with ATF over the years is it overstepping its bounds on changing definitions. This is probably one of the issues that I've had with what ATF's done over the years, because in forensics, in the military, we have definitions for words. We have a definition for fully automatic. A fully automatic weapon continues to fire while the trigger is held to the rear or till ammunition is exhausted. So that's what a fully automatic weapon is. We start having federal redefining, bump fire stocks and so on and so forth, what automatic fire is. That's a problem. And the other thing is too is we're seeing here again with the brace. We're seeing them come up with their own rules again, and that I do view that as a problem. It's been a controversial agency from the beginning, and you see a lot of people who have very strong opinions about ATF and what they're doing. But for as far as the issue with the with the race, we're very preliminary. There's been nothing that's been put out yet.
Mo, thank you. Is it true that the USAF acquired and used the Beretta 92 SB before the XM9 trial started?
That's news to me. I don't know everything. I'll be the first to tell you that. I'm not aware of that. I don't believe the Air Force had any dog in that. They were still using revolvers back in those days. Occasionally, you see 1911s. I'm not aware of anybody who was buying 92 SBs prior to the adoption of the 92F. You did have guns that were probably bought, COTS type guns that were used in testing and so much, but I can't tell you, say it. No, I've never heard of that.
I was wondering if you thought a 6.5 Grendel and a full-size AR platform could be an effective one-rifle solution for both self-defense and for hunting. Any guidance would be very much appreciated.
I would say for self-defense and hunting, could be. You do want a little bit longer of a barrel on there to be able to make use of that cartridge. For as far as a defense gun, as long as you got one that's reliable. The cartridge case of the 6.5 Grendel is not conducive to an automatic rifle, autoloading rifle. I do have experience with that. There was one of the companies that I did consulting for had a request from a Nordic or for a Scandinavian country who's believed that 6mm has been the way to go, since the 1900s. When they had the 7.62 NATO shoved down their throat by the U.S., they went and they asked this particular company if they could manufacture a 6.5 Grendel. I'm sorry, the 6.5 Grendel is an assault rifle, which means semi-automatic, fully automatic. Couldn't get it to work on fully automatic. The feeding of that cartridge, that's not how this weapon was designed. This is not a cartridge case. It's conducive to feeding reliable. The 6.8 SBC, on the other hand, that's not had a lot of problems for as far as reliability. Magazines have improved, but the 6.5 Grendel as an assault rifle cartridge and fully automatic was not good. Plus the barrel, the way you had the barrel life on the 6.5 Grendel, it would not last as long either. So if you have a particular setup that you're comfortable with and it's reliable and you can trust it, great. Overall, that would not be my first choice for a defense rifle. Hunting rifle, where if you miss that animal, no foul, you go home and you try the next day, no big deal, that's fine. Very different than a military LE or a defense rifle.
Ryan on Dotterbox, thank you, Ryan. He says, thank you for all that you do. I saw your Glock 17M video over the weekend, and you mentioned you carry the Federal HST 9mm in the G45. What grain HST do you carry, and what are your thoughts on standard pressure versus plus P?
124 grain. Of course, the FBI has adopted the Gold Dot 2, which is 147. Now, basically with plus P, if you look at CIP versus NATO versus SAMI specs, CIP is what you would have overseas. SAMI is the United States, and those are for commercial use. Then you have NATO, which will be like for the U.S. military. When you look at a 9mm cartridge, a proper CIP or a NATO cartridge, those are plus P pressures, which means they're higher pressures than which SAMI would call higher pressures. So a standard 9mm ball, which you'd be using anywhere else throughout the world, that will be normal use in Europe, where here it's considered plus P. So what you're generally getting is an extra 100 feet or so feet a second. So you're getting some additional velocity. And as long as your gun's designed for it, it is a good thing, because one of the things you have with hollow points is the faster that you drive them, the more apt they are to disrupt tissue. The faster that they hit that target, the better, the more apt they are to expand quicker. Especially when you have thicker bullets, like some of you older guys like me would remember the old evil flesh-seeking Black Talon. That was a bronze jacket. It was a very thick jacket. And the 147 grain 9mm, they didn't open up very well because they didn't have the velocity yet. You put that in a 357 Magnum, you would see, or the 127 grain plus P plus, they opened up excellent, did a wonderful job. So plus P is generally a good thing if your gun can take it. Now, most of your European-made guns will take it. Berettas were plus, obviously plus P NATO, they're fine. Sig, Glock, HK, all those guns would take the plus P rounds. It's the plus P plus that you want to take care of. Now, a lot of the American-made guns, they don't like plus P ammunition. They like the SAMI spec, non-plus P. SAMI is a lot more conservative than CIP and NATO is, just because of the fact that a lot of the guns that are out there commercial don't meet military specs. For instance, you have direct blowback that you'll have for commercial use. Well, military, you don't have that. If you for any military, you're going to have a lock breech for a 9mm, so you're going to have any issues firing that plus P ammunition. So hopefully this isn't overload on what you're asking for, but that's the major difference between the plus P, the CIP, the NATO, and the SAMI specs.
The M16 seems to be the only family to have such a long operating system and to have a separate buffer. Why does it need that? The MPX seems to get away with a shorter AR-18 type system.
As this rifle was designed, it was designed as what's been referred to as an inline construction. If you were to take the tip of the muzzle and draw a straight line back, it goes straight through the bolt carrier, right through the middle of the buffer and into your shoulder. Inline construction. And by having that recoil hitting your shoulder like it does, it's what makes the thing as controllable as anything. It's incredibly controllable because it doesn't jump up at you. It's part of the design of it. And it was designed with the buffer and buffer spring. So traditionally, you would have, the pistons, as you're referring to, external pistons, where you're utilizing a spring system inside of the receiver so you can have a side folding stock. If you look at the guns that utilize those springs inside, the bolts on rails to keep it straight from not having carrier tilt with pistons. The M16 design did not require that because as the gas would go into the gas tube, it would go down the piston chambers in between the bolt and the carrier. So you have inline. You don't have any kind of carrier tilt, and that was the way the whole system had worked. At the time, it gave better results than anything else that was out there for as far as recoil management. So I think great being able to control unfully automatic fire. It worked. It's been more over the more recent years where we're starting to see people go to the systems that are inside of the stock AR-18 type, AK type. It's a different way of doing something in certain situations. I think it was better. Some people didn't like the noise. Most of the time, all you do is you flip your recoil spring around, that noise goes away. Because that's the way that the harmonics are with the way the buffer is with the spring. But there's different ways to have the same thing work. So whatever you choose, I tend to, if I have an AR, I keep with the traditional buffer system. The way that it's designed, those buffer weights to give you the proper balance for fully automatic fire for everything, whatever you're doing. Those buffers do that. When you're working with something like a SIG MPX, you get to think of different ways to halt bolt carrier bounce and whatnot. So there's other ways you have to attack the same problems. This one is a much easier way to do it.
Is there a marking barrel available to LE via Glock?
Say again?
A marking barrel.
The marking barrel, if you're referring to, is what the Miami Police barrel, the Miami-Dade Police barrel. And from what I've seen on the microscope with the G17M, the Gen 5 barrels, the Gen 5 barrels do offer that marking. Now, what's that marking mean to you as a consumer? You as an end user? Doesn't mean a damn thing. The marking of that barrel, that who that is law enforcement. It was always funny when you would look at law enforcement would ask for the best barrel. They would give them, say, Glock pistols or anything with a hammer forged barrel. Best barrel in the industry, it'll last you the longest. There was no reason not to buy that until it came to the forensics end of it. The marking barrel is not going to benefit you one way or the other. It's only for law enforcement for identification. The barrels that you're seeing, like on the Gen 5, the marksman barrels, you still cannot use lead. That is still shallow rifling, cold hammer forged, but it does have like a lands in there, which are machined, so you still can get some of those markings that are in there. I've shot several different Gen 5s. I have a couple of the different ones here. Nothing really stood out tremendous for accuracy differences between the two. I guess with my hands, I couldn't tell you one better than the other.
What is the best bolt carrier group for an 11.5-inch Colt upper?
Well, as far as the bolt carrier group's concerned, I mean, you definitely want something that's well made. It's at least minimum mil spec for 11.5-inch barrel. A standard Colt or LNT or anybody who manufactures well. The bolts you want a good HP tested. I would want one that has the rubber O-ring that goes around the extractor, spring and buffer, so you get that extra push on there for as far as it being a shorter barrel. I, for the most part, use LMT parts. And I use Colt parts. Those are the two companies that most of the parts that I would go for. Now, if you can find yourself a microbus type carrier, like coming out of the parts that are carried by Monty Leclerc at Centurion Arms, those are military contractors. His bolt carriers, they come from military manufacturers who make for the U.S. government. So you're getting the mil spec. Mil spec doesn't mean better. It means that it maintains a certain standard. It's a standard it has to. Some of these cheaper ones, these I would avoid. I would stay with the top ones.
Does the LMT in handguard act as a heat sink since it's connected directly to the barrel? Say that again. Does the LMT handguard act as a heat sink since it's connected directly to the barrel?
The LMT one-piece upper receiver, there's no heat going into the handguard. It's all done at the rear of the barrel nut. So it's not like a RAS system where you have steel on steel. Where it's taking the heat from the hottest portion of the barrel, which is behind the gas block, and bringing it back into the receiver, where you could have an issue with if it gets hot enough, where you could have barrel drooping. There's no quote heat sink on that per se. By keeping the barrel free floated, you're allowing more air to circulate, and you're allowing to keep it cooler. And also, as it gets hotter, you're not applying any pressure to it to pull on the barrel, so it's not going to affect your accuracy as much. The only heat sinks that you really see are put out by POF USA. That's the only place where I've really ever seen a true heat sink used as a barrel nut. And I do believe JP Enterprises makes one as well. But unless you're firing full auto or you're firing rapid, it's not necessary.
LMT enhanced BCG versus the Knight Sand Cutter BCG.
Oh, those are two total different animals. The sand cutter BCG, all you're getting is chrome on there, and you're getting sand cuts. If you look at the LMT, you're getting the third vent hole. You're getting the cam track, which is altered to increase dwell time. You're getting more evenly way the gas is being distributed into the carrier chamber. Those are totally different systems. The Knight's a basic bolt carrier. The only difference is chrome, and with those sand notches, you don't get any of the enhancements that you get with the LMT. Their enhanced carrier.
I don't think he's going to be able to help you with this question, but I will ask it. I want to add a 1911 to the collection. Can I get a top 5 of your favorite 1911s?
Dude, I'm not the one to ask this question to.
Especially not a top 5.
Yeah.
I might be able to give you one.
Just
give him one you like. You have one you like, don't you?
Some of the Sig 1911s. I reviewed. You see some reviews I've done on those. They were quite well made. If that's your thing, if you want that 7 or 8 shot single stack magazine, I mean, I'm just not the guy to ask that to. It's not a pistol that I'm fond of. There's a lot of guys out there who know a hell of a lot more than I do. I don't think I could tell you that from my research over the years that Colt is not the way to go. They're very outdated compared to most of the manufacturers that are out there. But some of the one time I recommended Kimber, and I had guys come at me and say, no, those are garbage. Anybody and their brother is making a 1911. Yeah, I wish I could help you on that one. That's just not my area.
Looking at building an Arrow M4E1 SBR, would an 11.5-inch Arrow Atlas upper be more reliable choice than a 10.5?
The longer the barrel you get, the better. The longer the barrel you get from the gas port forward, better. So 10.5 is good. 11.5 is better. 12.5 is even better. Because basically what you're getting is the longer barrel you have, the longer that system is pressurized. So you're burning more propellant, and it increases that reliability. So yeah, 11.5 would be better than a 10.5, certainly. 10.5, that magic number, 10.3, the magic number came down to the fact that SOCOM wanted the shortest barrel that they could put a compensator on or a suppressor on. And unlike the prior two, like the XM177s, they shaved the bayonet lugs off them. These didn't. So SOCOM wanted the shortest barrel that they could go with that still had the bayonet lug on it. They would be able to put suppressed. That's where this 10.5-inch barrel came from. Where prior to that, Colt was they wanted to sell the 11.5-inch commando barrels.
Can you give a good description of the Colt M5 carbine?
The Colt M4 carbine, M5 carbine, there were two of them. The original Colt M5 carbine was an external piston gun that was designed around the 2006-7 time period when Colt was working on their external piston version. There was two different teams at Colt. One was a gentleman named Greg Kachenko, brilliant designer. He was the head of the M5 program. Then you had Art Daigle and you had Michael Plant, who were the head of the LE1020. So those were two competing designs. So that one was called the M5 that Greg Kachenko did. Now you have Colts, what they're calling the M5, which is a newer version that they put out probably, 3-4 years ago. And basically what it was, an ambidextrous lower receiver. So if you were to look at, say, the LE901, the original M5 receivers, which never went into production, by the way, 5.56 ones, that was part of Colt's individual carbine rifle. So basically what Colt did was they took the forging of their LE901 16S or LE901 their 308, which was ambidextrous, cut down the magazine well from 308 to 5.56, machined it to take 5.56. So on the individual carbine, you had an ambidextrous bolt release. Well, you had a bolt release on the right-hand side and a bolt catch and release on the left-hand side. Ambidextrous magazine release, and then you also had the ambi safety. That was shown in 5.56 as the M5. You saw them with various types of upper receivers. Some of them were with the one piece, and some of them were with the two. But that was the M5. That was shown at SHOT shows, and it was shown at several military shows. I've saw them in Jordan and many other shows. But it never went into production. So technically, two M5s. One was external piston, going way back to 2005, when they had the SCAR program. The other one was much later. Of course, I saw that lower. That was just a lower receiver with all the M5. The upper receiver could be external piston, it could be internal piston, it could be whatever it wanted to be.
Thank you. LWRC SPR, is it a good rifle?
Absolutely. LWRC has done wonderful jobs. They've maintained proper barrel lengths for the most part. Their system works very, very well. I have no issue with anything that comes out of LWRC.
Do you have to do a super chat to ask a question? No. About 80% of our questions are unpaid. So there you go. Thank you. Sig was selling 5.16 uppers in January for a great price. They claim they were leftovers from a military contract. Any idea who they were made for?
It's on the tip of my tongue. I'm trying to remember. That's a very legitimate statement. Sig has had several sales where they've sold their 5.16s, their external piston guns, overseas, and Sig would have had leftovers. What normally happens when you have any kind of a military contract, say you build 5,000 guns, you're probably going to have an extra 100 to 200 components that you're going to make of each. So you have a rifle that's sent off to be tested, and there's an issue with it. They swap out uppers, so you would have a backup. And my guess is that's what happened. They were 14.5-inch barrels. They were military barrels, if I recall. But Sig has many foreign military contracts throughout the world. They've done very well.
Joe, thank you. Hi, I'm currently having Wyndham SRC with a Magpul ACS stock and Mo handguard. Was wondering what you would recommend for barrel upgrades, etc.
SRC. Let me look up MRC because the MCS is the MGI Hydra. Let me just make sure I get my acronyms correct here. I'm getting old. It's hard to remember all these acronyms all the time. So I'd rather make sure I give you the proper information and look it up. Oh, that's their basic. That's their basic rifle. For as far as SRC is concerned, you can do anything that you want with that. You can change out the barrel to anything. You can put any stock on it. That's a complete basic building block. It really depends on what feels good to you. I can tell you for any of my go-to guns, the first thing I do is replace the pistol grip with a mag pull myad. That's the first thing that goes on there. And then for as far as stocks are concerned, you're looking at a Voltor stock, or you're looking at a LMT SOP mod stock, or any number of the Magpul stocks. This is where you really get down to the Lego set of rifles. Is once you get your basic rifle, any stock that you want, any pistol grip that you want, any handguard that you want, swap out the barrels, any calibers that you want. You literally anything that you want with it. And for as far as calibers are concerned, what are you going to do with it? I mean, are you just going to use it as a 5.56 defense? Leave it alone. If you're looking to do some hunting with it, start looking into 300 blackouts or the 6.8s. It just really depends on what you want to do with it.
ML, thank you. Is the Sig Virtuous or HK416 superior? Mill versions.
They're different firearms. If you really want to compare the Sig or the HK to something, you really want to look more towards the 5.16 at the Virtus. They're much better to compare the two. In fact, the reality is the Sig 5.16 is an upgraded version of the HK 416. The same designer who made the 416 went over to Sig. He teamed up with Chris Royce. They were charged with making a better rifle than the 416, and they had many changes that were done. That's for the 5.16. Now the Sig, the MCX is a whole new weapon system. It is not. I don't really think that you really would compare them because they're very different. One of them is an AR platform. The Virtus is not. The MCX is its own platform. Now, for as far as tried and true, there's certainly no question that the HK 416's got everything beat on that for as far as the SIGs were concerned in the Virtus line. So far as I know, the MCX has had no major military contracts. It has had special forces. It's had law enforcement because it's a relatively expensive rifle. The 5.16 has had major military contracts. You're looking at both high quality rifles. For as far as the cost is concerned, the Virtus is far more better for cost. The Sig is definitely going to have much easier for you to get replacement parts that you're not going to have to turn over your firstborn for price. For as far as your service is concerned, you're going to be better off with that Sig for as far as cost and availability of parts.
Joshua, thank you. Please talk about the copolymer lower experiments in the 1970s.
Well, as you know from the inception of the AR-15, it was about lightweight, initial, aluminum and steel, and polymer. Of course, as time goes on, we always want to see if we can make the best better, or in that case, lighter. The original one was a clamshell. Basically, it had two halves that came together. At that time, the polymer was not advanced like we have now. There's a major difference between what they had back then, and there was absolutely no benefit that was offered by it. If there was a lot of negative aspects that were offered by it, it was only experimental. It really hasn't been until American Tactical, which was their hybrid, which had metal inserts. That's the first time we've seen a polymer receiver that works in an AR platform reliably. Any of the ones that I have seen prior to that, I had always thought were complete garbage and I wouldn't trust. The Omni Max is the first one that I saw that, I have a slave lower here that's probably seen 20,000 rounds with various uppers. And the thing held together with no problem whatsoever. It's just as good as any aluminum one was. But that early attempt, it was a failure. A lot of times when you do mess with the polymer too, you end up making it larger because you have to have thicker amount of polymer to equal the strength of a less amount of aluminum in strength. But it was an R&D thing. They did it, didn't work, and they dropped it.
Resolute, thank you. Do you have any information on S&W submission to the XM17 competition? What specifically did not meet to U.S. Army's requirements?
Well, I can tell you straight out, the Smith & Wesson did not even make it through the down select. The initial 12,000 rounds that were fired, it did not clear. The only two to clear it were the Sig and the Glock. So what particularly caused it to fail, I couldn't tell you, because those reports, on those guns that failed, those only went to the manufacturers, not to anybody else, for as far as what caused them to fail, which is typical with Smith & Wesson. Smith & Wesson has traditionally failed horribly on any kind of military contracts for handguns. They don't even meet the down select. It just was not a durable pistol for what the military. I mean, for it not to get through that initial, there's no way it would have gone through. Well, the XM17, they totally, didn't bother with the second phase anyways. But it didn't even make it through that 12,000 round test.
Matt on DonorBox, totally unrelated, thought you could use a laugh. I work in a pawn shop. Guy came in today with 2 big rocks he found in the river. They were still wet. He tried to convince that they were solid gold. When we informed him they were not, he demanded that we test them. We did, and he left with his soggy stones of failure.
Well, you know what? I bet you that made your day, though.
I mean, yeah.
That certainly would make my day. I mean, my God, something to break up the monotony.
I think I would have laughed in his face, which probably wouldn't have helped the situation out. But I wonder if they were even like gold shape, or color,
Yeah.
like what made him think they purchased some
Wow, that's funny.
shit from. Well, Nathaniel, thank you. Where can I find what the actual mil spec drawings are for the M4?
You won't. Those drawings are heavily guarded. The owners of that drawing is still Colt Defense. They own that. They provide it to the U.S. government because it's part of their contract that they have to provide those drawings, which is referred to as a technical data package. They have to provide that to the U.S. government. Now, due to the conditions of the contract, once the source was done, the government had the ability to outsource that. And once a person was selected, which in this case was FN, they provided those drawings, that TDP, to FN for them to make that contract. However, they cannot use those drawings for anything other than that U.S. government contract, which all you guys who think that the FN military special editions you have are mil spec, that's not the case. Now, if that information was to leak out, not only would the government be sued for it, so would the company that did it. So, for instance, if it was found out that FN was providing commercial guns using that technical data, first off, Colt could go after FN, and then because the government was responsible for the security of those drawings, then he could go after the U.S. government. So you will not, and if you find anything on that, it's going to be stolen, and that's not a good thing, anyways. But those true drawings are a very guarded, trade secret.
Matt said the rocks were actually red, like clay.
Oh, wow.
That's even worse.
Rubies.
Poor guy.
Hey, he was grasping at straws, man. This economy sucks.
You do what you got to do. Bunny, thank you for 380 carry MO, XTP, HP, or Lehigh Defense. You can't show a gun.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that. One of my carry guns is a Glock 42, 380, and what I carry is the XTP. From everything that I have seen so far in 380, the 2 best ones are, number 1 is going to be the RIP. We had done some testing at Black Hills Ammunition. Black Hills Ammunition had let us use their lab where they had made gel. And when Jeff Hoffman tested the RIP, he said he has never seen anything in 380 that was as devastating as that. So there you go. And what Jeff Hoffman says, so far as I'm concerned, is complete, is gospel. Now, then you have the 380 and the XTP. Now, the XTP, or the extreme duty, or critical duty, you have a higher velocity bullet, you have the plug in there. Anything that I've seen short of that, this is excellent. Now, the reason I don't carry the RIP in this gun is because it's not reliable feeding. This G42 does not feed reliably the RIP rounds. However, it feeds the XTP 100%. Now, another good round for that is the Sig V-Crown. That's another good one. But those are definitely the ones that I would be sticking with a 380 auto.
Nelson on Donor Box. Thank you, Nelson. I really appreciate your great channel and the way you combine your skills. You have a lot of fans out here.
Well, I appreciate that.
What is your opinion of the Sig 716i Tread 308?
It's funny that you mentioned that because I will be picking one up for Brandon at the gun room this weekend. I just got one in for review. So give me a week or two and you'll see a review. I've just read up on it so far. Certainly like what I see, but I just got the notice from Sig that it has arrived with Brandon. So stand by on that one.
Ryan on Donor Box. Thank you, Ryan. What are your thoughts on Rock River arms? I'm looking at an entry-level AR-15, and I've narrowed it down to Rock River or Wyndham weaponry. Which would you pick?
Both are excellent. You know, you're going to be seeing a review on a Rock River probably next week, the next week or two. I got one using the 350 Legend. I've done several, rifles that were Rock River arms. Wyndham is the same. Wyndham is an extremely high quality manufacturer. It's going to be very hard to tell you which one would be better. It really would. The guys at Wyndham, that's the old Bushmaster. Those were the guys when Bushmaster was at the height of their quality. Those were the guys who ran. That's who you have at Wyndham right now. Now, the guns that you're going to get out of Wyndham are going to be more of the military spec type, utilizing more of the military type furniture. Rock River, you're going to get their rubber, their rubberized type pistol grip and their own type stocks and their own handguards and whatnot. So depending on what your plans are, if you want a regular basic M4, I did a video on the Wyndham weaponry one not too long, well actually a while back. It's probably a little over a year ago. You will find that and you can take a look at what I say on that. And the Rock River ones are there as well. The one that I had was a mil spec where you had the front sight base that was drilled and pinned. That to me is an absolute must. Most of the ones I've seen in a Rock River, they use their own type front sight bases, which are generally put on by screws. Yeah, you wouldn't go wrong either way. I probably would say for me, I would want a basic military one. I probably would more so go towards the Wyndham, just because what they're offering is more of the military standard. But you won't go wrong with Rock River either.
How are Tri-Arc Systems barrels different from Draco barrels? Who makes the most durable and accurate AR-15 barrels?
I have only used Draco once. It's more of a tactical type. It's not so much as the accuracy. It is what it offers you more is more rapid fire with better cooling capabilities because of the synthetic outer shell. For as far as accuracy is concerned, there are a lot of accurate barrels out there. If you look at the barrels that are used on the Mark 12, buying Leclerc again, you guys can save some money with some of his codes. What's over Centurion. We're going to be doing a video. Well, we're probably going to be filming it the next day or two on the Centurion arms.
He's been giving me a lot of very, very, very long videos. So when we sit down to film, it generally takes a long time and even a longer time to edit. So, not a lot of, I always tell them I have a dream one day we're going to sit down and film a 12-minute long video. But no, that's not how it.
At some point, I don't know, but getting back to your question, Centurion's Recce barrel that I shot, or that we shot. In fact, Brandon was the one that shot 0.8 inches at 100 yards with Black Hills Mark 262. And then, of course, I have my Mark 12, which was built by Monty Wallace Centurion, and that one has the Douglas, which was the issue Mark 12 barrel, which is also that's around a 3/4 to half MOA gun as well. There's a lot of excellent barrels out there, and just because barrel costs that kind of money doesn't mean it's any better than anything else. I think to justify the kind of money on a Draco or something like that, that's really for somebody who's more in a position where they're going to be doing rapid engagements of accurate fire, heavy rapid engagements. But for the significantly less cost, you can get an excellent Recce barrel, again, like we were discussing with from Centurion, and still maintain that precision sub-MOA accuracy with match-grade ammunition.
I did put the codes down into the chat line. There's 3 separate codes depending on what you're purchasing. Uppers and lowers are 5% off. Complete rifles are 3% off, and then everything else on their website is 10% off. So those codes are there if you guys.
It's not just having the best barrel in the market; it's using proper ammunition. That is the other thing too. You can have the best barrel of Draco in the world. You put Wolf in it, it's still going to shoot men in a barn door. You need to have the proper ammunition that's designed for it. In fact, the barrels that Monty makes, those are made specifically around the Mark 262, which is what they were designed for, and that's where that precision accuracy comes from.
What are your thoughts on Chris Vectors?
Oh, I hope Henry Chan's watching this one. Henry let me borrow one about a year ago, and I was able to I got the shooting done with it. And then by the time he had to get it back because he had to do something with it, well, unfortunately, then he SBR'd it. So of course, it's impossible to get him here for me to film. So I was never able to complete the video because I never could get access to that gun again. Now, accuracy, the thing when it comes to the Chris Vector, to me, it feels completely foreign. It's awkward. It's bulky. It don't fit me. It has nothing to do with its mechanical merits. It shot beautifully. It shot suppressed. It shot unsuppressed. Accurate as can be. I have utilized them on full auto. I had one that was their 45 auto on full auto. Wasn't that controllable? I haven't fired on full auto yet. It's a very strange looking system, and for me, it looks very overbuilt. There are other guns that work just as well, if not better, far simpler, relatively expensive. At some point, I might be able to get my hands on one to finish the review, which I will. But as I said, those of you who understand NFA, I mean, now, before Henry could loan it to me because it was just a pistol, but now because of the fact that it's, he would physically have to be here for me to be able to review that. And reschedule is crazy. He's very hard to get with anymore. But at some point, we hope to be able to finish that video. Very interesting. But again, what I'm talking to you about is my personal preference. Mechanically, I can't give you any negatives about it, or I think that it's overbuilt. That it was sort of an answer for a question that was never asked for as far as having a system that's that large.
Which current AR manufacturer do you consider the best?
Well, when I go to pick up my go-to gun, what is it? It's the LMT LMS or MLS. That's what my go-to gun is. Unless it's I also have a Colt, a Colt LE6944, which is their one-piece upper receiver. But my true go-to gun is that MLS. So I guess I'd have to say that because that's what my personal go-to would be. There's lots of great guns that are out there. To me, nothing offers the diversity and the capabilities of the LMT system. Because I like being able to spot out barrels, calibers, and so forth. My lower receiver is SBR, so I can use. I have barrels in 300 blackout, 5.56. I have internal piston barrels in those 6.8. Hopefully, I'm trying to get my hands on a 7.60 by 39 as we speak, but not had much luck. The Colt, on the other hand, one rifle, Sting 5.56, 14.5-inch barrel. Excellent option. Those are my go-to guns, but there's a lot out there that would be up there as well.
I'm about to get a BRN 601. Do I use the link on your website to send you a kickback? You absolutely can, and that would be awesome if you did. Anybody who's making any purchases on Palmetto or Brownells, if you go to smallarmsolutions.com and click on any of the banner ads for those businesses, we do get 3% commission on whatever you purchase. So absolutely.
Watch that service rifle video I did, because I go over my 601, and if you want to get it just that much closer to it being more authentic as a 601, get a hold of John Thomas. John Thomas can get you those parts that would make that just that much more authentic.
Do you prefer the CZ75 standard or Omega triggers? And what is your favorite CZ handgun?
I love the Bren 805. I love the Bren 2. I'm not really a big CZ fan. I've got a lot of trigger time on the regular CZ75 and its variants. I've tested a couple of their other polymer striker guns, and I got to say they never really overly impressed me. So I guess I really don't have a favorite CZ pistol. I do, again, I like their rifles. The traditional CZ75, I enjoy it for its, its place in history. It certainly put us more to the Wonder 9 with the double action trigger and the high capacity magazine, like the P38 with that double action decock. If you look at all these things and look at the M9, you can see where all these different areas pistols came into. What we have is the M9. I would say from a historical standpoint, the traditional CZ75 would probably be my favorite. As far as their polymer guns were concerned, the first one was it the P10, I think it was. I think it might have been the P10. I'm not sure which particular model it was. P10C, which is supposed to be the Glock killer. When I got that one, I had some issues with it, with light strikes and some feeding issues. The gun had to go back, and then when the gun came back, it was fine. Generally, if something goes wrong the first time, I give the manufacturers another shot. Because I worked in the engineering and manufacturing against for different manufacturers, I know no matter how good your company is, you can have the system in the world, but if something, you get that Monday morning gun or that Friday evening gun, something can go wrong. So I give them a second shot. And of course, when the gun came back, it was 100%, and it was a decent review. But there was no way that was a Glock killer for me.
Bought a Steyr SSG 69. Are the Steyr QD rings worth the cost?
No. For those of you who like to keep with OEM parts, you'll never go wrong with them. Money, no, but if you want to stick with OEM parts for those guns, it could be worth it. I'm sure it would hold its value, more so than anything else that you would put on it. But it just depends how deep your wallet is, I guess.
Are the heavy 16FN barrels accurate?
The barrels that you get out of FN are generally the Colt Hammer forged mil spec barrels. They are combat grade barrels. They're not designed to be sub MOA. For the purpose of a combat grade barrel, they are some of the best combat barrels in the industry. They do a beautiful job on the with the Colt Hammer forged process. Plus, you get the military grade chrome plating, where other companies nowadays you're getting nitriding and whatnot. They're still maintaining the chrome plating. So they're excellent barrels. In fact, again, those of you who I keep talking about Monty here because I've got some stuff coming from him. Monty he's had barrels over the years that have been made by FN, and he sticks with the military grade barrels. He sticks with the Colt Hammer forged with the chrome plating, which is what I prefer as well. Now, they're offering ones that are mid-length gas systems too. So if you're getting a 16-inch, you will never do better than a 16-inch mid-length Colt Hammer forged chrome-plated barrel. That to me is still the ideal combat grade barrel.
Carrie wants to know what I'm drinking tonight. I'm going to be really super lame, guys. Protein water. In fact, do you want a sip? I know she didn't have anything to drink. You're probably dying.
Hey, not bad. Blueberry.
Well, this is also, I can't drink it straight. It's actually half water and half protein water. I'm sure some of you guys know what was it? You just ate nonstop all of quarantine. I mean, that was eat and drink nonstop. So yeah, I'm trying to get the quarantine weight off. Harry wants to know if you had Whataburger today too.
You know what? It's something I'm thinking about at the moment. I had an early dinner. So I haven't yet, but I'm not sure that could be rectified this evening or not.
As you can clearly see, Chris does not support my weight loss efforts. So
no, I will never force it on her. If she doesn't want me to bring home that honey barbecue burger, I'm not going to.
I don't eat a honey barbecue burger. He doesn't even know what I order.
Well, last time I let you get like a salad or something.
Yeah, that's what I've been getting at Whataburger, and that's really sad and pathetic. So when he does get his Whataburger, I've been getting a salad.
And she's a grown adult woman. If she wants to put that into her body over that in front of the burger, that's her God-given right.
So you can never go wrong with water, right? The McRib is still the best, by the way.
You do not go to McDonald's in Texas. Even my
I mean, you can.
my 10-year-old. Ava used to love going to McDonald's after her cheer to get McDonald's. She's now made the full revolution to full Texan. Now we take her to Whataburger. That's what she wants. No more McDonald's.
Yeah, I think you were having a hard time yesterday when she got it and he didn't get it. But you know, we have Father's Day coming up, and I want to say Happy Father's Day to all of you guys out there. And Carrie, I know you're there with your kids, and Happy Father's Day. And I hope that you guys have a good Father's Day and everything. He wants this Fuzzies. That's in.
It's a Chicago type pizza they make in Katy. We lived in
for you guys obviously that don't live in Texas. Katy is a suburb of Houston, so
I'm sure there's some of you guys out there from Wisconsin, from the Chicago area where they had the deep crust pizza. We used to get that all the time when we lived in Wisconsin, and I haven't had it since. And this actually looked like it was pretty decent, so I've been wanting to try it for quite some time. So we're gonna give it a try.
So yeah, I'm gonna get him his fuzzies that he wanted on Saturday, and then he just wants me to make him a really big steak on Sunday.
So. Normally for Father's Day, I like to go to there's this German place I go on the other side of Houston, but I have to say, and this is sort of strange for me, but the German food that I make now, I think is more authentic than what I get in these places that are around here after being in Germany a few times and really working at it. And so I'd almost rather make my own German oven than go out unless I'm going to Germany. She doesn't like the German food though.
No, not really. What are your thoughts on the Swiss GP90 ammo?
Not used it. So I guess I can't really give you an opinion on that.
Do you have a favorite 9mm handgun?
My go-to at the moment would be the G45. I'm actually trying to get a G45 MOS to do a review for y'all on the G19X as compared to the G45 and the G45 MOS. I'm having great difficulty now getting teeny guns from Glock, unfortunately. But probably my go-to is that. But I will say, when it comes to favorite 9mm, I am a Beretta M9 fan. I always have been and always will be. I absolutely love the Beretta M9. I'm also a big fan of the USP9 as well.
Now everybody's talking about Whataburger and pizzas. I like what is the farthest, what is the northernmost Whataburger? I have no idea. And maybe Oklahoma?
We had one place in New York that was very famous in Rochester area. The place was called Shaler's, but it was completely different from what we would have here. This is definitely a whole new realm here.
Well, we had the most amazing pizza place when we lived in Milwaukee that we used to go to.
Trattoria di Carlo.
I can't believe he still remembers that though. But they had the best Italian food, but also really good pizza. And it was weird because it was like there was no good Italian places in Milwaukee either. So
they even had this small area where it was their like little Italy, and it was as an Italian I was was offended by it. It was very disgraceful. The delis were horrible. The restaurants were horrible. If you really we used to go to a place in Kenosha called Tenuta's, and that was right near the Illinois border, and that was probably the best place that we saw while we were out there.
Brian says the local mom and pop pizzerias tend to have the better pizza than the franchises. Oh, absolutely.
And where I'm from in New York, you didn't go to you went to mom and pops. You didn't go to any. Yeah,
I mean, growing up in Texas, we have. Somebody mentioned Godfather's Pizza, and I was like, yes, Godfather's Pizza.
There's more Italians down here.
Pizza Hut, Domino's, Papa John's, and going to upstate New York, it's all mom and pop pizzerias, and it's amazing. It's like pizza and wings on a whole nother level. Yeah, Fuzzies. He's been talking about Fuzzies though,
like because it's the only place that's advertised this, the Chicago style. So that's what I want to try.
Where do you go for brisket? He likes Rudy's, but I always tell him, like a real Texan,
we haven't gone to
you want to look. You want to look for like real barbecue. You look for the building that's about to fall down that looks like a shack off the side of the road, and that they're the ones that have the best. Oh, Sean says Wagyu. Make you smack your mom for not making that when you're growing up. Yeah. I'm gonna see if I can score some Wagyu this weekend. I've had Wagyu once, and that kind of ruined me for steak forever. But then I can make a really good steak. I'm like very good at making steak, but I don't know that it's so expensive. hopefully I don't screw it up.
Yeah, Wagyu I've had a few times overseas. Never had, I've only had it in the States here once, but Santiago, Chile, when I was out there, they had a whole restaurant where it was all open in glass where you could see into the refrigerators, where you see them aging the steak and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the Middle East, I would stay in some hotel in Jordan. And then there was another one in Dubai where it would have these incredible cuts of Wagyu beef. It was incredible.
And then, of course, Ted said the sub sandwiches up north, too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they have nothing like that down here.
Oh, no. Me Subway down here.
You guys from Rochester, nothing in the world.
Yeah, we have a guy in here from.
There's nothing even beats
Rochester.
DeBellas. DeBellas is the best that there was. I wish they would open up one down here.
He gets very okay. So here's a question: if you only had to pick one,
sub?
No. It's gonna get worse. If you only had to pick one, Whataburger or DeBellas, which would you pick?
That's not fair.
I could throw Calambinis in there too, but I didn't.
Well, Calambinis, no. If you're looking at my top two things that I love on this planet, nobody makes a better sub than DeBellas, and also Marticello's. In Rochester, those are the best subs on the face of the earth. Two best on the face of the earth. And then for as far as a true burger place is concerned, there's nothing that beats Whataburger as far as I'm concerned.
So which would you pick?
This is extremely hard.
You have to make. Hey, they ask you gun questions all the time. Which would you pick? I'm asking you a question.
I probably have to say DeBellas because my last name ends in a vowel. I'm Italian.
Well, Italian. This is why you're a Yankee, though. Because
while I'm here,
a real Southern man would never have picked that.
Well, a Southern man never would have access to a real Italian sub, though.
Tax asking, do you like Mexican food?
Oh God, yeah.
As a Texan, there's a certain level of your bloodstream that's made up of Mexican food, and when quarantine was going on, you can't to-go that. You can't to-go it. I mean, those places were like shut down, and they were not doing curbside. And I was becoming pretty angry that I wasn't able to get any chips and sauce. It was like withdrawal.
I'm seeing a very interesting question from Robert Garcia over there.
Mac Military Arms said, you did a good video on the history of the AR-10, getting into the whole story. I can't find it in your videos. What's the title of it?
It was the BRN-10. There was one video I did on the Brownell's BRN-10. Now, also, if you go into the Knights SR-25 M110, you'll see it as well. But the more detailed one is the one on the Brownell's BRN-10.
Ted is saying he's been to DeBellas and it was great, and he asked if they make their own bread and pickles. I don't know about pickles.
The bread they do. They do make their own oil there.
Oh yeah, the oil.
Yeah, and they also have their own special recipe for their hot peppers too.
So when I went up to New York without him and a couple of my kids, and he went to DeBellas, he wanted a whole laundry list of things. He wanted cold cuts. He wanted then we had cannoli, we had black and white cookie, we had Italian cookies by the freaking pound, and then he eats a large sub, which is like this big. So I got like 3 of them before I got on the plane, and they were like, if you have any food, you need to take it out and put it in a bin. It was single-handedly the most embarrassing moment of my life, because it was me and my 2 teenagers, and I was like, seriously, like, you want everything out? And they're like, no, you gotta take it all out. And I was like, okay. I had like 12 pounds of frozen hot dogs in my suitcase. They're like, yeah, all of it, because he also wanted hot dogs. He wanted Rochester hot dogs. So I had probably about a dozen bins going through the security of cookies and cannoli and subs and hot dogs and just cold cuts, pound. It was like I was like some fat chick that like couldn't make it on the plane without 800 freaking pounds of food. It was so embarrassing. And then they wanted to take the little container of oil that I had separate so his subs didn't get soggy. And I'm talking to the guy, I'm like, look, like, you take his oil, he's gonna be so mad at me. Like I made it out like the guy was probably gonna beat the shit out of me if he didn't have his oil to go on his sub. I'm like, you know what it's like to have a DeBella sub without the oil. Like, you can't do it. I can't get that stuff in Texas. Like it's going to be like a really, and he was like, take it. And I apparently spoke the language enough of, I mean, I told him, I was like, I literally was about to have to give the guy sexual favors in order to get your oil through for your subs, but like, you do what you got.
I'm sure he understood.
Have you ever had Zweigel's White Hots? That's what I had.
Yeah, that's what we get.
I had both. About 12 pounds of Zweigel's in my
parents sent me that, so does that too, because our kids love it too.
So I had it frozen in my suitcase. So yeah, it was pretty embarrassing, but I was able to make everything through. But oh, I haven't had too many trolls. This is only the second one. Well, on that note, I hope you guys have a good Father's Day. I hope you have a good weekend. Thanks for joining us. Do you want to say goodbye, Chris?
Well, thank you for joining us, thank you for joining us. Thank you for showing up here tonight. I know you guys are busy. I'm glad you want to spend time with us here. We got some really cool videos coming up. We got one coming up next, which is one I'm really going to be proud of, on the history of the Mark 262 ammunition. It's going to be a very in-depth review of that ammunition like you've never seen done anywhere on the internet or probably even written. We have some other really interesting guns coming up. We have the 350 Legend. We have the Air Force, the new Golf 5A. We have a big one coming up on Centurion Arms, including their new Recce rifle and some of their newer parts that they're making. And on the way right now, we have two SIG rifles, or a SIG P320 competition type, as well as the new 716 Shred. And I've got on the way 4 different rifles from Primary Weapon Systems and some stuff from Core 15. So there's a lot of really cool stuff coming up.
All right. Good night, guys.